Okay, so in my last video, it was uploaded maybe a week or so ago, I reviewed my Motoz Tractionator Adventure on my last ride using that tire as the back tire on my Aprilia Tuareg 660. Today, I have a Motoz Tractionator RallZ on the back, and I'm pretty excited for it. If you look over here, not sure what that looks like to you, but this is all the off-road I've done with the tire so far. So, what I want to do is ride the trail that I last rode using the Adventure tire with the RallZ and see what the differences are, at least the differences that I notice, if there are any at all. Something I can say this early into using the Motoz Tractionator RallZ tire is that I actually have more confidence on the road using the tire. I didn't expect that to be an aspect of the tire that would be an improvement. I know I'm expected to get much lower mileage out of it than I am the Adventure tire that was on there. So maybe it's the compound, maybe it's something else, but it just feels like it's glued to the roads. Ugh. The bike was a little too leaned over there. This probably doesn't look like it's any sort of angle to you, but this is a pretty steep, crappy hill here. So my plan was to ride this trail with the Tractionator Adventure tire and then go out the next weekend and ride it with the Tractionator RallZ tire. That way I'd have a pretty solid idea of what the difference was, or at least what the difference felt like when off-roading. But it's been a couple of weeks instead. This is 2 weekends later. And after I reviewed the Tractionator Adventure tire, we had 3 days of pretty heavy rain out here, just nonstop. So the following weekend, I actually took a Jeep up this road and then up this trail, and I saw that it was absolutely destroyed compared to the condition it was in when I reviewed the Tractionator Adventure tire. So unfortunately, I'm trying to stick to the plan, but the trail is going to be in rougher shape than it was in when I rode it with the Adventure in my last video. Just to be clear, that video's 30 minutes. It's a relatively comprehensive review of the Tractionator Adventure tire, and there's also third-person shots, action shots, that kind of thing. Whereas this video is just initial impressions. I'm going to off-road the tire and see if I even notice a difference. I expect to, and a lot of it might be placebo. It's my first ride. I'm excited. It's a brand new tire. Even if I put a brand new Adventure on the bike, I'd probably notice a little bit of a difference. But without further ado, let's start the bike. I'm not going to even try to hold traction. I'm just going to ride without being too cautious, and we'll see if the Tractionator makes up for, like if you could see when I let off the front brake, it gets much steeper from here, but it's already pretty steep. I just start backing up right away. So let's start the Tuareg, let's take off, and let's see if I notice anything. There was, let me close the visor a little bit, there was no slippage. I just launched off and the tire just stuck to the ground the entire time there. Now I'm still running the Dual Venture front. This is actually a really aggressive section of hill, but let's just eat it up. A little slippery in the front there. The only other difference is when I reviewed the Tractionator Adventure tire, I was running, I believe 31 or so PSI in the front in the Dual Venture and about 32 in the Adventure rear. Today, I am running about 31. This is Sandy right here. Oh yeah. Today, I am running 29 in the front and 33 in the rear. So less pressure in the front, more pressure in the rear. I don't expect it to make too massive of a difference, but I figure it's worth highlighting for any experience I have. But what is standing out to me so far is when I launched off at the beginning of this ride. And I didn't even treat it like it was off-road, loose, or steep, and that tire just didn't slip. That was actually quite bizarre. I don't know that I ever even actually tried that, in that exact scenario at least, with the Tractionator Adventure tire, but the Tractionator Adventure is a much harder compound, which has its benefits. It certainly does. But I don't think it would have gripped like that. Something I want to revisit while we get out to the rougher section of this trail, or this route, is the road performance has been really great. The tire seems to be quieter than the Tractionator Adventure that was on here. Okay, sorry. Woo-hoo-hoo! Definitely kicked it out there a good bit. Got to break this tire in. Stop making it look like it's never been off-roaded, because it hasn't, but can't say that after today. Oh, I already lost my train of thought here. I know from watching the video back this road does not look rough, but I promise you, this is not a gentle road. So, back to the road performance. I expected to like this tire less on the road than I liked the Tractionator Adventure on the road. And I like it a lot more. It feels glued to the road in a way the Tractionator Adventure did not. And it's a bit quieter. And I know the trade-off there with the softer compound is that I will get less miles out of this tire than the Adventure, but the value that provides to me, the additional road performance, while also being a more capable, in most scenarios, off-road tire than the Tractionator Adventure, it's worth the extra money to me. Something to factor in is the ratio of tire replacement. So I really like the Dual Venture front. I don't really anticipate switching that out. Maybe I will, maybe I won't, based on where I end up living in the future. But the Dual Venture in the front is likely going to get me, they might have done a little bit of repairs on this road after that rain I talked about. But the Dual Venture in the front should last a good 8,000 to 10,000 miles on the Tuareg 660 with me riding it. All right, it's actually pretty rough. So the thing with that is the RallZ is probably going to last 4 to 5. And with basic math, you can determine that you need 2 RallZs per Dual Venture. And the thing about the Dual Venture tire is roughly halfway through its mileage, people generally flip it because it is a reversible tire. And after they flip it, they do the same mileage again. Let me just stop at this hill real quick. So basically, what I am thinking there is it's the perfect tire combination in terms of balancing the range. 4,000 to 5,000 out of the rear, 10,000 out of the front. You get your mileage out of the rear, you put a new RallZ on there, you flip the Dual Venture, and then you're replacing both tires at the same time 9,000 or 10,000 miles later. Maybe not the most important aspect of the tire or tire combination. I just think it's pretty cool that it's a natural transition period where you get 2 RallZs out of the Dual Venture, and you can change the set if you want to, or just rinse and repeat. Okay, I'm going to stay quiet here. This section's really rutted out. You probably can't see very much. It looks like a lot of the ruts have filled in with a little bit of sand. I don't know what to expect of that in terms of how it feels, but I know after this little rough section here, the hardest part of this trail is up there around the bend, and instead of talking during that, I think I'm just going to let the bike audio do its thing. I'll ride that, and then as long as I don't fall, we'll continue on the trail, and I will come back, and we'll come back to talking at least, and see if I noticed any difference there. Oh my god! This thing, man, oh my god, that was incredible! Woo! Holy oh my god! Oh my god, that was... and I know... Whew, I know for sure that hill looks like nothing in the video. I've ridden that hill many times, and I have watched the video back many times, and it looks like a paved road compared to what it's like in person. But, oh man, I have never intentionally taken the bigger, bumpier obstacles on that hill and taken the bad routes and just stayed on the throttle like that. And, man, this RallZ, again, brand new. These lugs are the biggest they'll ever be. It's softer. The spacing is more aggressive. Oh, my God, that was awesome. So, what that felt like, when compared to the Adventure tire, I'm not going to bring the Pirelli Scorpion STRs that were on here before into the mix. Those are a street tire. But, wow. So, to explain that, whew, now I wish I brought a more complex camera setup and was able to sit here and talk about the tire for a bit. But for the sake of not being too boring, let me hop back on the bike and we'll continue on the... Actually, let's go explore down there. I have never been down there, so we'll go that way. We'll see what we discover, and I will continue talking about the tire. Whew! Okay, so what that felt like... Oh, there's nothing over here. Okay. Well, I'm in the grass, so I'm not going to spin the tire. There's my little dust cloud from taking off. The loss of traction comes on, at least in that particular scenario, very similarly to the loss of traction on the Adventure tire. The Adventure tire is still an absolute beast and monster of a tire. So I feel like there's a little bit of a bump in the performance of this tire where you get a little bit further with traction before the traction actually cuts out on you, or you lose the traction. Obviously that depends on your riding and the actual conditions you're in, but it holds traction for slightly longer. What it feels like though is when it needs to grab traction again for being in a state of not having traction, it bites it so much more quickly than the Adventure bit traction once more. I don't know if that's the lug spacing. I'm intentionally doing the harder lines here. This one's going to be tough to do the harder line on, but we'll go for it. Big bump here. Wow, that's a... maybe it's in my head. It's too new, but oh my lord, is this tire phenomenal. Oh, wow. The way the tire bites traction after losing it is just so much more aggressive than what I was used to on the Adventure tire. Again, might be the softer compound, might be the more aggressive lug spacing, but when you lose traction and you want to get it back, or maybe you're not even trying to get it back yet, it just bites and starts propelling your motorcycle again. It's really tough to me. It's really tough for me to compare this tire to... Let's just do some exploring so I can continue talking here. Let's actually ride this really off-camera thing and see what happens. I don't like it. Ugh. Okay, well, bad idea. I just don't want to put myself in a situation where I can't get out of it. And when I feel myself entering a situation like that, I want to exit it by my choice when I still have good control of the motorcycle, not after I've lost control of the motorcycle. I have been on some trails way back there along those mountains or foothills, whatever they are, and pretty good out there. I want to do a torture test of the RallZ tire out there eventually, but whew, I have a lot of changes coming to the Tuareg. I finally got the HDB bar kit coming. You can maybe see that the directionals are the European style now. And then I have a lot of performance modifications coming in. I have some replacement bolts that I have for some bolts that have been missing for thousands of miles on this thing. So Tuareg V2 is entering the chat soon. And once Tuareg V2 is built, I'll probably go for a torture test of the RallZ tire and just put it in situations that low traction environments that just aren't really enjoyable to ride. And the type of environments that you kind of end up having to ride along your adventures, not necessarily by choice, but to just carry on and continue on getting to where you're going. But, that's a little soft, having this RallZ as a companion is going to be excellent. Again, I anticipate getting less miles out of this tire than I would have been able to get out of the Adventure tire, but for me, I think that trade-off is going to be worth it. I generally do 3,000, maybe 4,000 miles a season, if that. A tire a season, not really a huge deal, especially when it improves the road riding performance when compared to the Adventure, at least for me, and those are my initial impressions. I don't have much experience on the tire just yet, maybe a couple, or maybe 100 miles or so on the street, with a handful of smaller rides, 4 or 5 rides. I will say, I've also had a passenger on the back of the bike, and that passenger has been with me on motorcycle rides over the course of 10 plus years at this point, which is crazy to think about. From when I had sport bikes, to getting my first adventure bike, which is this, to getting the Adventure tire on here, to getting the RallZ tire. And she says she likes the RallZ more. She says it's quieter, and I swear this is in her head, maybe just as much as it's in my head, but smoother as well. At low speeds, I do feel almost like a chatter to the rear tire. It only happens sometimes, so a little bizarre there. Not a huge bother. It kind of just reminds me that I have an absolute monster of a tire back there, and it makes me pretty happy. So not a complaint, just something I have observed. So initial off-road impressions, dude, I'm in love. I think this tire is, if you take longevity out of the equation, this tire is just better than the Adventure. I like it more on the roads so far. I have very little experience with it when compared to the Adventure tire on the road. Very little experience when compared to the Adventure tire off-road, but I like it so much more. On-road, again, sticky. It feels quieter to me. The softer compound gives me more confidence, one, for traction on the roads, and two, for grabbing what I need it to grab when off-road. And the longevity trade-off is not that huge of a deal, at least in my mind. And this is not to say that the Adventure tire is not a capable tire and you need something more capable than the Adventure tire when off-roading. I think the Adventure tire is more off-road capability than just about anyone who rides a middleweight to heavier weight adventure bike will need for their adventures. But if you can have a higher quality road experience and a higher quality off-road experience, whether or not the cost is worth it to you is for you to decide. It's a hard one, and it kind of comes down to what your mileage mix is like. You know, if you're always riding hundreds of miles to the trails, or you're always doing actual big adventures or big trips, the Adventure is a compromise that makes a lot more sense. And again, you're not giving up off-road performance or off-road capability unless you're absolutely insane. And then I could see the case of putting a RallZ on there and burning through one every couple of months, but we're talking thousands and thousands of excellent miles out of a tire that is capable of performing well on the roads and absolutely demolishing your off-road needs. So, not a bad trade. Okay, this is filled in with sand. I hate it. I wanted to change my gear there, but I didn't want to slow down and have the front kick out, but it looks like that either naturally filled in or someone filled it in. So, while I don't think there is extreme value in my first impressions of the tire, I do want to document my ownership experience and riding experience in a way that I did not document my experience with the Adventure tire. And when I think to blasting up that hill, hitting the chunkier rocks along the ride, being reckless on the throttle, and having the bike grab traction, grab traction, grab traction. And again, traction, well, not again, but traction control is off on the motorcycle, so that's not stepping in to aid me in any way, shape, or form. Oh, man. Gotta stop here, right? So yeah, initial impressions of the RallZ. I love it, and I can see why it is so popular. I strayed away from it when I bought the Adventure because of my perception of the longevity. I wanted to get a tire that would last long. The RallZ is, supposed to be 80% off-road, 20% on-road. The Adventure is supposed to be 70% off-road, 30% on-road. Let's change it up a little bit. It's amazing. The way it grips this is very different. All loose rock, very steep. I know it won't look steep, but I promise it is. It just feels like my bike is glued to the ground. Off-road, on-road, that tire is glued. I didn't know it would feel this good. And again, I love the Adventure tire. And I think for the majority of adventure riders out there, I'm more likely to recommend the Adventure tire than the RallZ. But that depends on how much someone likes having to change tires out on their bike, what actual riding they do, how valuable great street and off-road performance is, and whether that makes sense to spend more money on tires over the course of 30,000 miles and having to deal with changing them out and whatnot. But again, one of the biggest surprises I have with this RallZ on the back of the bike is what it feels like on the roads. I just trust it more, and I have more confidence in it than I had in the Adventure, and it's not even fully broken in yet, which is really bizarre. And that's without really playing with air pressures and trying to dial it in for different kinds of rides. But I got really into the canyons on the way out into this trail ride in a way that I didn't with the Adventure. And I don't know if it's the lack of noise gives me more confidence, or just feeling like that softer compound is actually stuck to the ground when I'm in the corners. So, as far as the Tractionator goes, I am sold. Obviously, I'm sold since I bought it and it's on the back of my bike and I'm out here riding on it. But I 100% see myself sticking with this combination, replacing the Dual Venture in the front and putting another RallZ on there when the time comes. A little more expensive than the Adventure setup, but then at least my tire changes are synchronized instead of early changing the Adventure to keep it synchronized. Now I'd like to keep the video going, going until I get back out to that tough hill, so I can just roll down that and see how the tire feels there and share that as well. Let me close the visor a little bit. The wind's probably been crazy on your ears. But this is just an initial impressions. This is my first time off-roading the RallZ, and this is what has come to mind while off-roading with the RallZ as my rear tire. And I don't know that you can expect the same level of excitement and happiness. Adventure riding to me is way too much fun. I know a lot of people love it. I don't necessarily know that a lot of people out there enjoy adventure riding as much as I do. Off-roading with a big, heavy, well, I guess the Tuareg's not really a big, heavy adventure bike, but to most people, off-roading an adventure bike's a big, heavy motorcycle. I love it. I like the challenge of it. I like the feel. I like the commitment that's required. The stakes are high. It's just, it puts me in the moment in a way that not many other things do. Okay, let's go through the big stuff here. Again, this rock is stupid to go over. Let's do that. Wow, okay. The Adventure, I'm quite sure, would have handled that just the same. But what comes to mind is if I had to slow down on that, or if I did lose traction, I believe I'd be able to bite traction much sooner than I was able to on the Adventure tire. So yeah, again, long story short, I love adventure riding. I enjoy it, maybe a little too much, but at this point in my life, enjoying something the way I enjoy this feels very, very, very lucky, and I'm grateful for it. So please bear my overexcitement for stuff like this. I like it a lot. Next up on the channel, I just had a massive list of warranty work completed on the Tuareg, and I will be providing a reliability update video. Hopefully that's my next video on the channel. Been meaning to get that out for a bit, but I just had all of that work completed recently, and it was a lot of stuff. On this bike, I have had 4 or 5 warranty issues in my first like 5 or so thousand miles, and I want to share my experience with that. I already kind of shared the issues, but now that I've had that fixed and the bike's kind of back to working order, hopefully it stays that way, I want to go ahead and just provide an update of where it's at and what my plans are to keep this thing healthy now that my warranty is coming to an end, because I will now be on the hook for things that might not be my fault, like future gasket leaks and things along those lines. But I do have a plan to get that taken care of and make sure those aren't an issue in the future. And I just want to share that plan either before I do all the work or after I do all the work. It depends on the timing of all the required parts coming in. So I kind of want to review it before I fix it up. But I don't mind if the parts come in, I get it, all the stuff thrown on there, I do all my work on the bike, and then I do the reliability update. I just want to provide an update just for people who are interested in the long-term ownership experience of this particular motorcycle, since it's in such a good spot in the market, and its biggest flaw seems to be people's perception of its long-term reliability or lack of long-term reliability. So that's basically what's next on the channel. That might be next weekend, might be the following. Bunch of busy weeks and weekends coming up, so I'll just kind of get that out when I can get that out. But let me go down this disgusting hill that probably looks like a paved road in the video, and then just provide, again, final thoughts on that RallZ as my new rear tire on the Tuareg. If I can sum that up in one easy statement about the tire, dude, it's sticky. it's like when I brake and let go, or even if I'm accelerating, it still loses traction in a way that's similar to the Adventure, although it is holding on a bit longer before it loses that traction. It requires a bit more to lose it. But the way it grabs traction again, it just surprises me every time. I lose it, traction's back. I lose it, traction's... I'm used to losing it and having a slightly larger buffer before that rear wheel is providing me direct control of the motorcycle again. And with this RallZ back there, it just bites. I'm really happy with it. I didn't think I'd notice a difference, and maybe this is just me being a little too excited early on into my riding experience with the tire. Maybe the Adventure would have been just like this on this terrain when it was brand new and the lugs were a lot bigger. I just don't think that's the case. I really think it's a good difference off-road. And the cost is there because you're paying the same price as an Adventure, or close to the same price as an Adventure tire, and you're getting less miles out of it. So while you're not paying more in terms of dollars, you're paying more per mile driven. And for me, at this point in time, I do believe that's worth it. If I'm ever in a situation where getting traction back can save my leg from breaking, or maybe save dropping a passenger or something like that, having it cost a little bit more to keep my control or direct control over the motorcycle seems like a no-brainer. Again, as mentioned in my last video, this thing is essentially a 500-pound dirt bike. And for a tire to perform like that on the roads and on the dirt and give you anything more than 1,000 miles, I think is really, really cool and very impressive. I do think the Dual Venture Adventure combo is a great setup to run if you are unsure, because it will give you clarity on whether or not you want more road performance or if you want more off-road performance. And I don't think you're really giving up much in each category. You have plenty of road performance, and you should have more than enough off-road performance with the Adventure tire. So running that setup gives you the best of both worlds, plus good longevity, and plenty of time to decide what you want out of your next set of tires. With that being said, depending on the rider, depending on the financial situation, the RallZ might make a lot more sense. If you want more performance, the RallZ's there, but you are going to be paying more money per mile. All right, let me stop talking about this thing now and go back to... It's coming around the corner here. And go back to an actual closing thought segment on the tire. So, I am completing my first off-road ride with the Tractionator RallZ as my rear tire. I love it. I am impressed. I don't regret having the Adventure tire on there and getting all the experience I did with the Adventure tire on this motorcycle. But had I known it would feel like this on the road and in the off-road, I'd have likely just gone for a RallZ in the first place. Let me reiterate one final time. I love the Adventure tire. I can highly recommend the Adventure tire to most adventure riders who actually off-road their adventure bikes, especially those who ride in potentially harder conditions, or at least hard conditions for a big heavy motorcycle to be off-roaded. But this RallZ steps up the road performance, or at least my confidence in a tire on the road. I don't have any data to suggest it's actually a better road tire. For one reason or another, I just happen to be more confident on the roads with the RallZ tire on the back. Don't know why it is, not going to complain about it, not going to question it, just going to enjoy it. And let's go back to the roads here and ride with that same tire that I just did some off-road with. Oh my God. I never thought I would be one of those weird guys who fell in love with motorcycle tires. But here we are, man. I loved the Adventure tire. more than I knew I could like a tire, and somehow I like the RallZ more than I like the Adventure tire. So very happy. But to share my bias, just so you're aware, I could take a moped on a trail and have the time of my life and tell you how it's the greatest thing in the world and you need one. I just enjoy riding a little too much. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing, but RallZ tire, I'm looking forward to enjoying the heck out of this thing throughout the life it offers me, putting it to the test, taking it on my big trips for the year, and having the Tuareg be more of the machine I'm wanting it to become. This is incredible. I'm very happy with it. I love it a lot. Loved the Adventure. The RallZ just steps it up in the road category and in the off-road category, and I am grateful that this thing exists. But that's all. Look out for my Tuareg 660 update or reliability update video. Look out for more RallZ content. I don't know how frequently I'll be doing stuff. Maybe 1,000 miles in, 3,000 miles in, that sort of thing. And then other adventure riders that I'm hoping to have the time to get to this year before I move out of Colorado. But that's all. Thank you a ton for watching the video. Hopefully I was able to keep this one under 30 minutes, and I will continue the ride, head home, and start working on this thing so I can get it uploaded. Thanks. Bye.